This is Identity and Its Changeability by me, Ethan Russell Smith, on The Merchant of Venice. The suggestions that The Merchant of Venice makes about identify is in the beginning of the novel. A Christian is walking and sees a Jew in a red hat and spits on him. This shows identity subjection because the Christian is discriminating against the Jew by spitting on him. Also, all Jews have to wear red hats, which reiterates the discrimination of Jews in the novel. This goes on throughout the novel with the discrimination of Jews, and I'll explain that later in the slides. Wealth is also a force in determining a person's identity and still is to this day. Donald Trump is a very disrespected person due to the amount of wealth and things that wealth has done to him, with him abusing his power with other people. In the novel, a person is in higher ranks would be seen as rulers of other, just like how the king and queen have lots of wealth and riches, so they are giving the title of king and queen. The public eye sees that wealth determines a person's power and identity. How do individuals define who they are? In the novel, every individual is subjected to a public judgment. If you were Jewish and poor, you'd be considered to be a peasant and also treated like one. Of the poor Jews that were very discriminated by higher up citizens or Christians with a lot of wealth. So if you were Christian and rich, you were treated with respect, and like a king, you would receive blessings and riches. If you were Christian and rich, you were treated with respect, and like a king, you would receive blessings and riches. So for my first quote, this is Shylock aside. How like a fouling publican he looks. I hate him, for he is a Christian. But more for that in low simplicity, he lends out money, grants, and brings down. The rate unsants here with us in Venice. If I can catch him once upon the hip, I will feed fat the ancient grudge I bear him. He hates our scared nation, and he rails. Even there where merchants most do congratulate on me, my bearings, and my well-won thrift, which he calls interest. Cursed be my tribe if I forgive him. So this quote shows how Jews perceive Christians as cruel because the Christians dishonor the Jews' beliefs, and they also bully them and treat them as peasants. What factors influence or shape a person's identity? The social view of the community within the novel, people's beliefs and wealth shape a person's identity. When Bassanio marries into a more wealthy and respected family, he gets more wealth and respect within the community. So, does this mean that Bassanio actually loves Portia? Or is he just using her for wealth and social respect? Also, with Bassanio's loan to pay off, it was smart of him to marry higher up in society. Bassanio's identity changes for the better due to it being influenced by wealth. So this is my second quote. I tried to climb into Jem's skin and walk around in it. If I had gone alone to the Radley place at 2 in the morning, my funeral would have been held the next afternoon. So it's chapter 7, page 65. This quote shows how Boo Radley scares the other children. In this quote, it identifies that Boo is portrayed as an insane and crazy person that would kill people for just getting close to him. This shows identity discrimination from Scout to Boo. So this is like in The Merchant of Venice, but with wealth and Jews. It's how the Christians discriminate the Jews and the poor people. A person's identity can change. Can a person's identity change? A person's identity can change. This is shown when Marissa and Portia dress up as men to be more respected in court, since women were perceived as weak and stupid. They did this so the other men would see them as men, so they would listen and pay attention even though they were actually women. Your identity could also not change. If you are a Jew, then you will always be perceived as a lower class. Just like when Bassanio was worried about marrying Portia, even though she was beautiful and wealthy. So once you are a Jew, you are always a Jew, and you always are perceived as a Jew. So this is Bassanio's quote. This is my third quote. Her name is Portia, nothing undervalued. To Casio's daughter, Brutus Portia, nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth. For the four winds blow in from every coast, Rhinoian sawyers, and her sunny locks hang on her templets like a golden fleece, which makes her seat of Belmont colchos strawed, and merry Jasons come in quest of her. So this quote is of Bassanio explaining that he loves Portia and her wealth, which explains that even though she is a Jew, her wealth makes her an acceptable person to marry a Christian. Therefore, Portia's identity changes. What conflicts arise because of identity issues? A conflict arose when Bassanio took a bond with Shylock for 2,000 ducats. Then, later in the novel, could not pay it off. In the bond, he has to give Shylock a pound of flesh if it is not paid off, which it wasn't. All Bassanio used the bond for was to get a girl in a higher ranking with more wealth so his identity could change for the better. Then he would not be seen as a poor Christian. Pray you, tell me this. If he should break his day with what should I gain? By the Pray you, tell me this. If he should break his day, what should I gain? By the exaction of the forfeiture, a pound of a man's flesh taken from a man is not so stable, profitable neither as flesh or muttons, beefs or goats. I say to buy his favor, I extended this friendship. If he will take it, so. If not, adieu. And for my love, I pray you wrong me not. This is the start of the conflict when Shylock is explaining the debt on the bond as he requests a pound of flesh if not paid off. What statement about identity does the novel make? The statement the novel makes about The statement the novel makes about identity is that a judgment on a person's trait is influenced by their wealth, religion, and beliefs. These judgments tend to shape their identity in a negative way. When a person is giving an identity from the judgment of people with power, they tend to abuse the power. In other cases, a person's identity could be shaped by the negative impulse people give them, and this could make them grumpy or cruel. This is like how Shylock is evil by taking a pound of flesh if Antonio does not pay off his debt. So this is another quote from Shylock. "I'll have my bond. Speak not against my bond. I have sworn an oath that I will have my bond." This is Shylock enforcing on Bassanio and Antonio that he will have his pound of flesh. In other words, the bond. What is the impact of the question of identity on character? In the novel, the identity of a character put them in places and situations in the story that influenced a changeability. When Shylock is not allowed to cut a pound of flesh off Antonio, he becomes much more aware of what he needs to write in his contracts. Therefore, Shylock's identity of a Jew made the Christians do everything in their power to, quote-unquote, save their kind. Shylock's identity put him in a situation that changed him. So this is a quote from Antonio during the court scene. "The Duke cannot deny the course of law, for the comedy that strangers have. With us in Venice, if it be denied, will much impeach the justice of his state, since that the trade and profit of the city. Consensus of all nations, therefore go." In this quote, Antonio grants the law of Venice by having justice on the unpaid bond that was poorly put together by Shylock. Shylock had to cut exactly a pound of flesh with no bleeding, which is obviously impossible to do. Therefore, the bond was denied. Antonio is again grateful for the law of Venice, which he says in the quote. In the first couple of days of high school, I felt like I had to change my identity to fit in the high school standard. I wanted to be one of the cool kids with lots of respect among others, as I would respect them. This is like when Bassanio married Portia to gain riches and respect. Bassanio wanted to gain respect because he feel like he wasn't getting enough of it because he was a Christian. And that is all for my presentation. Thank you for watching and listening. Have a great time marking. Bye.